investigator for most of my life. I feel it important to tell you all at the earliest juncture what I do, why I do it, and the unspoken rules of engagement when revealing information to the masses at large. I've seen far too many inscrutable types just pulling stories out of thin air for a quick buck, or completely disrespecting the names and memories of those they were paid to investigate. I won't be doing any of that, not when what's going on concerns all of us. My name is Wilson. I'm a PI that takes most of my appointments online and with very little contact face to face. Not just because of the current social climate, but because I like to be on the go when I'm working. I live close to the Rainbow Springs State Park in Central Florida. It's a great place to visit for your mental health, and it keeps me fit. So you can imagine my surprise when a job comes in that is directly linked to the park itself. If you're unfamiliar with The Missing 411, it's a book series by David Paulides chronicling the sheer volume of missing person cases in national parks all across the United States. People who vanish in short time frames without a trace, some found inexplicably far from where they started without any logical explanation for how they got there, and bodies left in conditions that would make your skin crawl. Florida doesn't even crack the top 10 for total missing persons, at least not officially. On the back channels, however, there's a lot more to go by. Historically, young people have wandered into the park when drunk, high, or just downright horny with a partner, and either gone off the face of the earth or found dead, much, much farther than where they started. My first investigation into the park came when an irate husband was adamant his wife had been cheating on him and wanted me to tail her on one of her midnight secondments. The guy was rough around the edges, but paid me well, so I obliged. It didn't take long for the spouse to go wandering, and sure enough, she met in the parking lot with the husband's sister. I took the info back to the husband, and in a complete 180, he simply chuckled and said,
Huh. What can you do? I'll file for divorce and get my shit. Thanks, man.
he paid me extra for my troubles, and I went home, treated myself to an extra large takeout, and forgot about it. 2 days later, I got a call from my colleague in the precinct. The husband was found sitting in a boat, naked, under a blanket, and drenched in blood, sobbing like a wild man. The rangers asked him what had happened, and he said,
It wasn't right. I should have been enough. But now I can be.
before they could clarify, they realized what he was wearing: the bowie knife cast aside in the boat, and the cuts on his arms. It was the skin of a woman, his sister. When he was questioned, his sanity clearly waning, he smiled and told the officers.
The Baron of the Woods has her now. He's keeping her safe until I'm ready.
He was found hanging in his cell before he was brought to trial, a bloodied message left on the wall. The Baron provides. That one took a while to get over. I've had a terse conversation with my contact over at the PD, who gave me a polite but firm talking to about the confidentiality of the case. Reminded me I'm just a PI, and once I'm paid, that's the end of it.
What you hear, what you see, it stays in that park or with us. Got it?
He looked serious, deadly serious. It didn't suit him, and while I didn't fully buy it, I wasn't a fool. I placated him with a few drinks, and we forgot all about it. That is, until the Pineview field trip. Case 1. Helping Hands. I'd been tasked with observing and investigating a counselor who was suspected of being actively high on the job and dealing to the students. So, knowing they would be off school grounds for the trip, I followed them. That middle school group of 22 went into the park one summer for a weekend of bonding, fun activities, and memories to last a lifetime. 18 would emerge with trauma that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. I was camped up a ways away and scouting for any sign of the counselor either being high, showing withdrawal, or offering it to the kids. It was becoming obvious that there wasn't anything of the sort, so I instead decided to keep tabs and relax with a couple of beers, enjoying the night air. According to the witness statements, it started on the first night. A group of 5 friends were in a tent closest to the embankment where a large swath of trees that led for miles was situated on the opposite side. The youngest, Dylan, complained repeatedly of splashing coming closer to the tent as he tried to sleep. None of the others believed him and convinced him to just sleep it off. which he did until it happened again and spooked the second kid, Bryce. The other two, Mike and Grayson, calmed them down and told them not to complain to the counselor as they liked the spot. The witness sleeping with them, Danny, said he couldn't hear anything and thought they were playing a stupid prank. By the second night, however, things escalated. Danny claimed he was awoken by the sound of splashing outside and muffled groans. He looked around and saw Dylan was out of his sleeping bag. Worried he may have fallen into the water, Danny went outside into the darkness to call for him. Danny claims he saw a figure in the shallows, maybe waist deep, that was beckoning to him, with the arm bending at a weird angle. Danny didn't move and called out to Dylan again, at which point he says he heard Dylan's voice, but that it was weird, like somebody doing a really good Dylan impression, but off. Something overcame Danny, and he took a step back as three other shapes rose out of the water, all beckoning with their arms bent at odd angles, and calling his name in the same off way that Dylan sounded. Danny says he screamed and ran into the tent to wake the others, but the bags were empty. At this point, I'm now awake at my little campsite and overlooking the scene, and I see Danny running to the cabin screaming as people rush toward the shallows. Dylan, Bryce, Mitchell, and Gray were never found. The only thing that showed they'd stepped into the shallows were some clothes and, most disturbingly, arms that had been left floating in the place where Danny spied them. Case 2. Morning patterns. After that, I stepped up my research into the local legends around the park and disappearances that hadn't gone on public record. Brick wall after brick wall hit me before I caught a break. Someone had heard I was looking into what went on at the park, and I received an email. The email my assistant forwarded was titled, Disappearances in State Park. Help.
Dear Mr. Cooper, I hear you have been taking cases for those who go missing in the park, and I'm hoping you can help me. My name is Marco, and I am writing to you in the hopes you can help me with something that has long plagued my family. I'll get straight to the point. Every one of my children has gone missing when they turn 18. I am a proud father of 6, 2 girls and 4 boys. A busy household at one time, I'm sure you can imagine. There's Mikhail, 24, Piotr, 22, Yulia and Tomasz, 21, Jonas, 17, and Diana, 15. All of my children besides Jonas and Diana are missing, Mr. Cooper. And all of them were last seen heading into Rainbow Springs State Park. Jonas's 18th birthday is coming up, and my wife and I cannot bear the thought of losing another. I realize how far-fetched this must sound to you, and you undoubtedly have your concerns. But if you are at the very least willing to meet with me, I will explain further. Please, our family can only take so much turmoil. We need help, and there's nowhere else to turn. Yours faithfully, Marco Baldoni.
I blinked and made sure Dolly, my PA, hadn't sent me spam by accident. She confirmed she hadn't. I reread the contents of the email 3 times over before doing some research into the park itself, knowing full well that all state parks had a varying degree of missing persons, but never hearing of multiple siblings. Scouring the articles, I could only find one on the eldest son, Mikhail, from 6 years ago, providing minimal information, save for an appeal and a shot of him with his family. A tall, fair-skinned kid with messy, curly black hair that stretched over his brow and dangled in front of his eyes that were hidden behind thick glasses.
With Lucid, agile teams don't have to start from square one. Need to run agile events with a hybrid team? Use facilitator tools and visual activities to make daily stand-ups more engaging. Implement and scale your own brand of agile with customizable templates for sprint planning, daily stand-ups, and retrospectives. Boost transparency and alignment by integrating systems of record like Jira. Centralize shared resources, prioritize work, and get your agile team squared away with Lucid. Try it free today.
This is World of Warcraft, but there's no classes because there's archetypes instead. An archetype is a fusion of 2 or more classes, like this Fire Lord, which is a fusion of Fire Mage and Shaman, or this Master of Shadows, which is a Warlock Rogue with a succubus. Pick one, then play the game. As you level, you'll unlock your archetype's spells and abilities and get strong. Adventure to level 60, being a total Chad badass. Once you hit 60, it's time to get creative. At max level, your character unlocks. Now you can unlearn spells and talents you don't want. Guess what that implies? It implies you can learn abilities you do want, and you can. Customize your champion with spells and skills from any class in the game. Forge something as unique and interesting as your browser history. Then go dominate dungeons, raids, battlegrounds, the arena, and even custom Vanilla Plus content like new dungeons, new world bosses, new mechanics, and even totally new content like the Mana Storm. Challenge Azeroth with your own unique custom hero. Make your mark on the world. Welcome to Ascension Custom WoW. Download the game and play free today.
Cheeky smile as he stands arm in arm with his other siblings, and proud parents standing behind him at a family ceremony. I don't know what it was, but something in the photo tugged at the withered heartstrings, and my afternoon schedule wasn't exactly packed, so I decided to meet the family for coffee and hear them out. I had no idea how much this case would haunt my dreams for years to come. I drove up to the Baldoni household and immediately knew I was dealing with a grief-stricken family broken beyond repair. The lawn was barely kept up, hedges were jutting out, and the neighbors murmured fervently to one another as I trudged up the driveway to the house. Not so much judging as they were silently looking on with pity, one word repeatedly being picked up as I reached the door. Cursed. Marco answered the door before I could even wrap my knuckles for a second knock. He was disheveled, frantic, and above all else, tired. The man I saw in the photos was portly, salt and pepper curly hair, and a wide grin showcasing the pride in his family. The man in front of me looked 15 years older, frail, balding, and with a permanent grimace as if the bags under his eyes weighed his whole face down.
Ah, detective. Please come in.
He opened the door wider, and the distinct odor of musk permeated my nostrils. But I had been to far worse places and followed with a smile as we sat down in the living room. A place that had clearly become a shrine of sorts to their lost children. Photos of kids in various stages of their lives littered every piece of furniture, from the fireplace stand to the coffee table. If I'd looked for long enough, I'm sure I could have traced each child's milestone from birth to disappearance in the photos, newspaper articles, and trinkets. Marco sat down as one of his children brought in some lemonade and sat next to him, arm on his shoulder reassuringly. "I take it this is Yana?" I asked, staring at the young girl, trying to gauge any information I could without asking. She seemed to be in good health, tired like her father, but much more steadfast, though that could be chalked up to her age. He nodded and she introduced herself, a soft smile breaking across her face.
It's nice to meet you. My dad says you're here to help me find out where my siblings are.
Marco interjected, almost like a trained reaction.
Find out what happened to them, Yana. We know where they are.
His hands fell into his lap, and his entire body language dropped further. He had already resigned himself to their fate. I took a sip of lemonade and took out my notepad. "Why don't you tell me where this all began, Marco? What happened with Mikhail?" Marco's eyes widened at the mere mention of his son's name. His lip trembled, but a reassuring squeeze from Yana kept his resolve. He nodded and got up, looking at a series of photos on the mantelpiece.
Mikhail was our firstborn, a truly gifted boy with computers. He was remarked as a prodigy from a young age and entered into a scholarship. We emigrated here when he was 4, and you can imagine the issues we faced from the outside world. So our pride in him was immeasurable, but never to the point we pushed him too hard. We just wanted him to be happy. But Mikhail was the sort to expect too much of himself, and it frequently resulted in him locking himself away in his room if he didn't achieve perfect scores or an experiment didn't turn out the way he wanted. He started researching into ways to help broaden his horizons and deepen his understanding of how things worked. That led him to some research which completely consumed him from the age of 17.
Marco picked up the photo of Mikhail's graduation, tears staining his cheeks.
My brilliant boy was obsessed. Barely spoke to us in the lead up to his 18th birthday. If he wasn't working on his experiments, he was out taking long walks until God knows when. We couldn't chastise him when we didn't know his return, and we just thought he was going through the usual issues a boy his age does. So long as he took some mace and kept his phone on, we let him have his freedom.
I see. Well, parenting is a tough journey, and he was your first. You're bound to make errors in judgment, Marco. It's not your fault. I gave him a reassuring smile. He seemed like he wasn't the cause of Mikhail's downfall or his disappearance. That much was clear. He returned the smile with far less enthusiasm and continued.
The night of his 18th birthday, he packed his things and came down during movie night to speak to us. It was like the old Mikhail was back. He was practically glowing, and I was so shocked at this I didn't even question the positivity. When your son has barely said 3 words to you for a year, and then suddenly wants to engage in long conversations, tell you he loves you and hug you, well, you just take it for what it is. What a fool I was not noticing the signs. Mikhail waited until we were all asleep before taking the car and driving to the national park. The car was parked up without issue and had no sign of Mikhail beyond entering the visitor's gate. The guard said he seemed like a normal kid, but with a determined look about him and a large backpack on his person. They never found a trace of him, Detective.
With that, Marco sank into the couch and wrung his hands, full of shame. I knew that look, and I knew I had to ask the obvious, painful as it may be. Marco, was Mikhail suicidal? Did he have any mental health problems? His eyes met mine, and the hurt in them was apparent. He'd been asked this before.
Everyone has said the same thing to me. He must have been depressed. Typical foreign family putting pressure on their bright boy to give them all an easy life. He was a shut-in, so it's no wonder he killed himself. Journalists, neighbors, teachers, state troopers, and police all think the same way.
He slammed a fist down as Yana stared at him with tears in her eyes.
My boy was loved. He was cherished. We never had any signs, and we encouraged communication. We still do. We were a loving family. We talked things out, and we did not shame our children for failing. He didn't. He couldn't.
He pressed his head into his hands and softly sobbed as Yana comforted him. I'm sorry, Marco. We can discuss your other children another day if you prefer. I realize this must be painful for you. I had to ask in order to eliminate the possibilities. If they've already gone down that road, then I assure you I won't do the same. You have my word. I leaned forward and put a hand on his forearm, hoping it would help him. He nodded and composed himself.
So it went. Pyotr, the second oldest, always looked up to Mikhail and idolized him. He was more artistically inclined and focused diligently on his poetry skills, wanting to be just as good in his craft as Mikhail was. The two found their respective differences fascinating. How one could be so focused on the creative arts and the other on science, both covering for the other's weaknesses. I dare say they were more like twins than brothers at some points. Pyotr worried for Mikhail during those dark days, but he kept the family together with movie nights, poetry recitals, and would leave small sticky notes around the house with these fun messages to keep our spirits up.
As Marco smiled, I looked around and saw the fridge, washing machine, kitchen door, and every other appliance still had these distinctive yellow sticky notes with small, carefully worded messages affixed to them. But all that changed when Mikhail disappeared, I assume? I pressed, scribbling more notes down on my pad. He nodded and asked Yana for a stiffer drink. She hesitantly obliged and walked to the kitchen.
He became inconsolable, especially after the first few days of searching yielded nothing, and people very quickly drew conclusions of suicide.
That was close! I need to recover here, guys.
You should recover with a protein-packed game-time snack, like this big cookie from Lenny and Larry's, with 16 grams of protein.
Is this for real?
Oh, it's for real. Here, try it for yourself.
That is the spot.
So you can hit your targets. Speaking of, incoming!
So last night he used hymns.
Honestly, nothing better than when a guy breaks this out.
I seriously can't stop thinking about
Hymns.
Hymns.
Thank you for the best night of my life.
PSA to guys out there, we love when you hymns.
If he pops one of these, I know what's coming.
Hymns.
Hymns.
Discover longer, better times in the bedroom. Get started today at hymns.com.
He was like me, you see, passionate and fiery. He refused to believe Mikhail would do anything of the sort, and would get into all manner of confrontations with anyone who suggested otherwise. Teachers would kick him out of classes for cussing out his peers when they made unkind comments, you see. And he would eventually get suspended for breaking the nose of a bully who mimicked the hanging motion when referencing Mikhail. After that, he began writing darker focused poems and placing them on his front door. They made us unsettled, but we let him express himself. I took them all down after he disappeared, though. That was too painful. Except for...
He pulled a crumpled note out of his pocket as Yana placed a bottle of vodka on the table, and he poured himself a shot, downing it without hesitation as he read the note aloud.
It calls to me from beyond the veil, a screaming, writhing, terrible wail. It howls and cries in a language not meant for man, but I will search for it the way I only can. It lays in the grave of giants, hidden from view. It bears the soul of my brother, suffering renewed. Do not fret, do not cry, for I will return. The hearts of my family no longer will they yearn. For the Baron of the Woods told me a tale. Keep my promise, and I will return from the veil.
It's strange to admit, but I felt a bitter chill run through me as he finished. Was I really to believe a teenage kid wrote this? It sounded almost coded, like he'd read too many old gothic horror novels. But something within it rang true. A message within a message, maybe. Marco gave it to me with shaking hands and continued.
After that, he too left for the park. He was never spotted by the guards and had gone on foot. A passerby said they saw him trudging in very loose clothing for the time of year he went missing. They were concerned he'd freeze, but said they felt uncomfortable approaching him. They reported it to the ranger, but nothing came of it.
Marco sighed and poured another shot.
The second of my children went missing, and my heart broke even more. Again, no trace. But this time there was no conclusion of death. His case is still open. What a joke.
A hollow laugh left his body before he downed the shot and wiped his lips.
Apologies, but I need this to talk about what happened next. You understand.
I do, but I hope you don't plan on getting too intoxicated. It'll make my job to find them harder. Please, in moderation. I felt awkward telling a grown man stricken with grief what to do in his own home, but this was still a courtesy call. and I wouldn't get very far if he was plastered. He nodded grimly and signaled to Yana to leave the room.
Dad, I want to be here to help you, especially with Mom being...
She protested, but he silenced her with a wave of his hand and something in another language I didn't understand. He kissed her and sent her away after a few tense moments.
She doesn't know the extent of the twins' issue. I must confess, not all of them are missing. We know where one of them is.
His deadpan, bitter response catches me off guard, and I sit forward, noticing something is off. All right, I'm listening. What happened? He visibly shudders before continuing, getting up and pacing the room as if anxious.
Yulia and Tomasz were twins. As you know, they were inseparable, and, like many twins, I'm told, they had their own habits and languages. There were so many times where they felt disconnected from the rest of us, content to spend their days planning trips together or doing their own thing. But as time went by, they too began to become reclusive. Maybe that was always the way it was going to go. One sibling following the other. But even when you see a car crash coming, you can't help but be devastated by its impact.
Marco shakes his head, perhaps trying to rid himself of the mixture of guilt and pain, if only for a moment.
They began communicating exclusively with one another after Pyotr left, becoming more and more hysterical in the lead up to their own disappearance. But this was different to the others.
I could see the morose expression grow from his face to his body language, and he grabbed something from the desk and tossed it in front of me, pouring another shot.
We know where one of them ended up.
He flatly added as my eyes darted down to the paper from a few years ago. Local teen found dead in unusual circumstances, splashed across the front in gaudy font. A photo of a cordoned off section of the park next to it. The already tense mood grew worse as the article hung in the air for a few moments before Marco put his finger on a section of the map, and for the first time since we met, I understood why other PIs had either turned this down or come up with nothing. Marco was pointing to a cave high up on the cliffside.
Tomasz was found inside there after people nearby complained of a foul smell and saw birds scavenging nearby. He'd been missing for 2 weeks by the time they found him, but he'd been dead less than that. A kid with no athletic ability, climbing equipment, or survival skills managed to stay alive and get himself up to such a high spot some 6 miles into the national park? That is not possible, Detective. My boy could not have done that on his own. Someone took him up there.
So you think something has been luring your kids to the park for some reason? I pressed, trying not to sound insulting in my tone as I put the pen and paper down for a moment. He knocked back the shot and put another piece of paper onto the table. A map with directions and a piece of Peter's poetry.
From the darkness he calls to me, a cacophony of agony and impropriety. To the old land the Baron beckons me forth. My twin dances beyond my gaze, her soul enraptured within the darkest maze. I am powerless to resist his siren's call, for he speaks in the voice of my brother, and I know not how to defy my heart, for it is broken like no other.
The map showed directions to an area not marked on the forest trails. It was shoddy, hastily drawn, and with unusual markings that Marco pointed out were definitely the twins' own language. I stare for a moment as Marco says what I'm thinking.
Not something. Someone, Detective.
How did Thomas die? Where was Yulia?
Exposure, so they say. I've never been able to even spend any time with the body beyond our rushed verification. Yulia was nowhere to be seen. Not a trace. Yana doesn't know we found Tomasz. She still thinks he's missing, and I cannot bear to tell her otherwise. You may have noticed the mother is nowhere to be seen. This is because the grief broke her heart. I couldn't tell her what pushed her over the edge. You understand.
I leaned back and took a breath, running through the information in my head. When did Jonas turn 18?
last week. He's already behaving strangely, and we've kept him in his room for now. No matter how hard we try, they find a way to either lower our guard or leave when we're asleep. We have to sleep sometime, and Yana is in no state to overpower her brother. I do not know what else to do, Detective. Something is killing my family, and I don't know why.
He puts his face in his hands and sobs as Yana comes back in to comfort him. I decide this is a good moment to take a breather and head for the hallway, the dusty smell of the house making me congested.
He's wrong, you know.
I spun around and saw Yana standing in the hall, a defiant look on her young face. What do you mean? Do you think it's something else?
Mental illness. It runs in our family. I tried.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Don't miss our 2-in-1 deal. Get 76% off NordVPN plus up to 10 gigabytes of free eSIM data from Saley.
For most businesses, hiring can take a long time. Not for Susan, though. She uses ZipRecruiter to find quality candidates fast. ZipRecruiter uses powerful matching technology to screen resumes and find the top candidates. So Susan can quickly invite the best matches to apply with just one click. It's no wonder ZipRecruiter is rated the #1 hiring site. Spend less time hiring and more time building your business. Try for free at ZipRecruiter.com.
Try to keep positive for Dad's sake, to give him something to hold on to other than grief, but my family hasn't ever been tested for anything, and my father is convinced that there's some curse on the family from the old country. But I think they're just sick, Detective. Please don't make a promise you can't keep. That's all I ask. I don't want to lose another family member.
She walked back inside and left me to ponder my options. I could leave a grief-stricken father in limbo and advise they see a doctor, or I looked up at the stairs, a single light on in the bedroom and a pang of guilt in my chest. Or I could commit to the job and see where it takes me. Call me a fool, but I said yes. I told Marco to let Jonas out and I'd tail him. Much as I wanted to know more about the kid, I couldn't risk him recognizing me and giving me the runaround when I was following him. It only took a couple of nights for Jonas to find his way towards the park. The kid was fast, I'll give him that. Tall and lanky with summer wear on made him adept at traversing the underbrush and trapezing along the trail, darting left and right as he made his way deeper and deeper into the forest. Eventually, I came to a clearing and damn near collapsed over myself in a heap. I wheezed and took a minute to recuperate, hoping I could hear for something nearby to tell me where he was, and praying I didn't go back to the family empty-handed. Sure enough, after a few moments, something cracked in the direction to my left. Swinging around, I saw a figure that had been watching me scuttle off. Thinking it was Jonas, I chased after and called out, explaining I just wanted to help. No reply, typical. This time, I pushed through the stitches and the god-awful wheezing, cursed my love of Chinese food, and powered on to chase after Jonas until the trees overhead began blotting out the sky, branches stretching over into a canopy that kept the warm moonlight glow from reaching me, turning the entire trail into darkness. I'd lost my way long before I decided to stop and look around, unsure of where I'd come in and where I was going. Silence permeated the space around me. It was unnerving. I pulled out my phone and put the light on to find my way, and I swear to God, if I had the ability to scream over the wheezing, I would have. It was Jonas, crouched behind me, staring up with wide, manic eyes and smiling at me. He was bouncing on his tiptoes like a child at a birthday party. We stood there for a few seconds before he leaned behind me and giggled, leaping back into the dark and chanting something that seemed to come from all directions.
From the blackness he calls with glee, a reunion for them, a reunion for thee.
Brothers, sisters, and mothers attend, a time for broken hearts to mend. For they congregate in the grave of tusks, and so I too shall join them as dust. For the Baron of the Woods' his debt is paid. The Baldoni bloodline has been slain.
I turned and saw what he had been looking at. To this day, I have no earthly idea how something like this could be in the park, let alone anywhere on this planet. I'd been standing on a small cliff edge overlooking a sparse pit strewn with bodies and bones, a mass grave known as an elephant pit. It was said that when elephants got to a certain age, they'd pair off from the herd and die in these vapid, open lands, their bones all that remained after decades. But these were humans. Some were all preserved, while others were nothing but bones, all of them still clothed and chucked carelessly into the unforgiving soil. Someone put them here. I breathed, turning around to look for Jonas, the chanting growing distant as I ran in the direction of his voice. No sooner had I started running again did I catch something under my feet and stumble down, toppling head over feet until my head collided with something hard and I blacked out. When I came to, I was being attended to by the park rangers in a familiar area of the park, Jonas blanketed nearby and looking as if he was on death's door. What happened? I asked, the ranger furrowing their brow as they stared into my eyes, their colleague coming over.
Concussion. He's not gonna remember.
They said quietly in the first ranger's ear. They nodded, and an air of concern returned to them.
You went off the trail. We thought he'd stole from you or something. Found you both passed out at the bottom of a nasty dip. One false move and you'd have been lost to time. Looks like someone out there has your back. Better thank the Baron when you can.
He smiled with a wink. Thank the Baron? What? I blinked. My skull felt as if it were splitting open, and my head spun. He grinned again, and everything faded to black. It was some time before I was able to make sense of the night's events. Jonas was brought home and had no memory of ever going into the woods. He said he just felt compelled to go for a walk, and that was it. Marco was overjoyed to have his son back and thanked me profusely, as did Yana. When I had a quiet moment, I asked him about a debt his family may have owed. He looked at me as if I'd awoken the devil, and his jaw grew slack.
In the old country, when I was born, it was said I was a sickly boy. This was during the war, and my parents could not bear any more loss and bloodshed. My mother told me that my father took me into the ancient woods and asked the Lord there to bless me, and that he'd pay whatever price was needed.
I always thought it was just some old country folklore, but he shuddered and took a moment.
I think deep down I knew that's what this was. But who would believe it?
I couldn't bring myself to say I did, because I still don't know what I saw there that night. I didn't want to invite more troubles into this poor guy's life, so I left my card and told him to give me a call if anything unusual popped up again. That was 2 months ago. I still have headaches on occasion, and I don't go into the park for fun walks anymore. It feels wrong now. Sometimes, and only sometimes, I feel this unceasing desire to go off the beaten path and into the darker areas of the park, to seek out the truth of what I saw that night. And that feeling scares me to death. Oh, welcome back, friends. I'm glad to see that my last tale of the missing 411 in Rainbow Springs got some attention. It's good to know that when I'm gone, the tales of what these poor souls endured lives on. It kinda lets me feel like I'm leaving a legacy behind, you know? Well, I have a few more, especially since things are ramping up on my end, but we'll get to that in due time. For now, I'll tell you about 3 more incidents on my journey across America. This time, we're stopping over in the state hosting the oldest park in the nation, Georgia. Indian Springs State Park was established back in 1925 and is located just by I-15. It's a 528-acre display of beauty with multiple springs that the natives use to heal their wounded, hence the name. It is also the site of some more unusual and genuinely unsettling cases I've worked, proving one thing to me beyond all else. Sometimes, even in the kind of job where you follow people, Your work follows you. Case 3. Born from the earth, taken by the earth.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and set up your store on a single integrated platform. Add products, showcase them dynamically, and seamlessly track your inventory. Accept multiple secure payments, and design your storefront down to the very last detail. Get all the tools you need. Drive more sales with customizable gift cards and flexible product subscriptions. Retain customers with a point-based loyalty program, email automations, and reach millions with sales channel integrations. Complete your setup with a personalized analytics dashboard. Make smart business decisions and shape the next phase of your business. Build, manage, and grow from one place. Go to Wix and launch your online business today.
New Airhead Sour Box.
Hi.
Start sour
I'm Carol.
and stays sour.
It was a hot July afternoon. I was trying to catch a siesta in my car with the AC on full and a soothing death metal album on full blast when I got a text from my assistant. How far are you from Yohola Creek? Bleary-eyed and sweating, I looked at my GPS. About 15 minutes. Why? Client wants to see you, says it's urgent. Be there in 20, they're expecting you. I began to type back that I needed more notice than that, when her response interrupted me. It was 4 words that had me rushing into action. It's a park ranger. 15 minutes and a cold soda later, I sat in Yohola Creek Diner across from the slender woman in her late 30s. Red hair tied back into a neat bun, and freckles shining in the spotlight.
I already
Her
know. That's
expression
why
was grim.
I'm not falling for that
Nice to meet
shit.
you. I'm Mikey. You're Wilson, right? Saw the incident over in Florida with the missing family? Heard the rangers there gave you a hard time.
Her smile doesn't meet her eyes, but it's disarming enough that I feel the need to qualify the statement, maybe even boast. I undo my tie ever so slightly and smile, hoping I'm not sweating more than I think. There was a bit more going on than what they said publicly, but you'd probably not believe me. I hesitated. Her expression didn't change as I carried on. I saw a sort of elephant grave, missing people who shouldn't be there, all of them talking about
the Baron.
She finished my sentence for me and didn't break her gaze.
Rangers talk. We know. Can't say why they wanted to keep it quiet, but that doesn't mean we don't hear about it. Specifically when that same Baron has been operating in our park.
She slides a photo towards the desk. The sun glints off the top of the corner and adds a sort of mystique to the otherwise grim image. It's a Polaroid of a heavily pregnant, disheveled woman walking barefoot into the deeper part of the forest. Her skin is covered in dirt, scratches, and bruises. Her t-shirt is ripped, and her pants look 2 sizes too small. But there is a determination in her face I'd seen far too many times. She's going somewhere. She has a goal in mind. I breathed, looking at the photo closer. Who is she?
Angela Daniels, 27 and from Bexar, Texas. She fled up here after certain laws were enacted in the state.
Martha's teeth gritted and her brow furrowed. This was personal to her.
She came here at the request of something.
Look, I don't want to politicize that. I started, my words catching in my throat the moment I said them, knowing full well I was being stupid. Martha's eyes burned.
You got kids, Wilson?
No, ma'am, I don't. I'm not fond of them myself.
And it was that simple for you, huh? Just decide, nope, and walk away, right?
Yeah? I felt hot under my collar as she grilled me. She picked up the photo and shoved it towards me.
This is what happens when you do not get a choice in the matter to walk away.
She simmers down and recomposes herself.
Ain't no politicizing the issue. It's a person's life and right to choose. Simple as that.
Things went silent for a while. I don't know why I took a cowardly stance on something like that. I never liked to ruffle feathers. Look, I'm sorry. I wasn't being considerate. Sometimes my job, you try to set the objective, but I rubbed my neck. trying not to meet
Dude,
her
you're
gaze.
less than me, and then
"Oh,
I came
it's
out
my
here.
bad. Sorry."
That's
I held out my hand and she took it.
5%. You
Her
did.
gaze softened a
Yes,
little.
I am. Because
You're all
Mom
right.
didn't know she
I should be
had
professional too.
Crow and
It's
Cherokee in her.
This one hurts.
She sighs and looks at the photo.
We don't know how she got to the park.
Yeah, pretty much. But
But she carved a message into a tree near the entrance. Like she wanted people to see it.
And it's like I
Was it?
said
I asked,
before,
but I
could
already knew the
have
answer.
fucking
The
Indian
Baron
from the
provides.
Oban side of the
She
family.
said simply, a quiver in her
But
lips,
we
which
got
she
no
knew
way
the
of tracking
danger it
that
brought
shit.
by simply uttering
I
it.
had
I
Crow,
wanted to bring you
Chippewa,
in
and
because of
Cherokee,
prior experience.
which
I'm
means
hoping you can
I got
find her
the
and why she traveled to this part of the
Cherokee
world.
and Crow
What she seeks
probably
there.
from
I
Mom's
grew
side.
silent. My
That
cold
or
drink
it's
lay
from the
empty,
Oban
and I was already desperate for
And I'm
another.
thinking if it was
She
from
looked
Red
like she
Hills,
hadn't
it would have
eaten or
been more like
slept in days, so
with
I
Chippewa,
indulged her.
Sue, that
"Hey,
sort of
let's
thing.
get another cold
Because
one. You
that's
can give me some
that's
details,
the
okay?"
three.
She didn't protest as another round
Yeah,
came to the
exactly.
table, the drinks clinging softly as we settled in and tried to diffuse the last of the tension. In my experience,
Yeah,
people come
I
to these
remember
places
that.
for some specific attraction or
Right,
oddity,
I remember
to me thinking many that may bring them luck.
that.
She thought for a moment before pulling out a map and pointing a few acres into the woods at a small blotch of open area where a tree stood.
Here, our oldest oak tree is a nice
Seven
rest
or-
spot for trail walkers.
7 or 8
Some
fucking
say at
different
night
tribes
you
that
can
were
hear
all
the
grouped
spirits of the
together,
dead.
and they come
Maybe
together
she
and
went to
fucking
go
talk
meet
about
them.
things
Maybe, but
and
why didn't any of you try to stop her?
rule over
One
each other
legally
that
pregnant
way.
woman on
You
the
know, the
trail
whole.
ain't exactly
They do
cheap.
that now.
Furthermore, why call me
They
in
still
if
do
you know
that.
where she's going?
The
I couldn't help but
Confederated
ask,
Tribes of
knowing that any
America.
other sane person
Yeah,
would
well,
do the same
it
given
used
the
to be 7
information.
tribes when
She
the
sighed and rubbed her
Pilgrims
temple.
and shit originally
Because
got
despite
here
what
in
we
the Great
know,
Lakes
none of us
area.
know our
Yeah,
Jersey right now
there were
have
7
done
of them up there that were fucking doing it.
unusual
Well, now it's like
aspects of the
hundreds of tribes.
someone
Like,
who had.
it's great in my opinion. You're
That's
gonna
it.
bring fucking
I
Whitey
stared,
down. It's
a
like
little
fucking
dumbfounded
banding
at the
together
response.
and being more
You
powerful.
brought me in because I had a run-in.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's
Sure.
not even
Well,
about
get the
bringing
damn
anyone
Ghostbusters then.
but the evil,
No,
corrupt
she is, and
bastards
she's not a
down.
threat.
Yeah, which is
I'm
why.
a PI, not a bounty hunter.
No.
I got up, ready to leave, and grabbing my hat as I headed for the door.
6 campers have gone missing near that tree in the last 2
Why
years.
the fuck does that matter? We're all just
Was
different
fortnight
shades of wheat,
ago. We need to
man.
tell the family something.
She blurred out.
There is no race. That's just retarded.
Now I had something. After a bit of conversing,
Yeah, well, we are all slaves now. You do have a valid point there.
Before returning to collect me at sundown.
It's like it doesn't matter what your skin color is now. You're a slave to the system.
And that I worked better alone. I'm sure I'd have enjoyed her company just fine.
Is this still
But
not
after
done?
our
Oh my
awkward exchange
God.
earlier, I just didn't want to
Why?
push it any further. Beyond that,
Why
I
is
just couldn't
that
shake
not
the feeling
done?
something
That's
was
pissing
off.
me off,
And
guys.
didn't want to have too many foxes in the henhouse.
What do you think, Chad? Do you
Something
think
in
that's
my
a
gut
bit messed
stirred.
up? Yeah,
I
not,
felt unease
not
and tried to
accessible.
ignore it as I smiled and thanked her, trying to ignore the overwhelming thought in my mind.
Come on, hurry up
This
and
feels
finish
too
repairing
routine.
my SSD, please.
I felt something strike me as I recounted
I'll
the
just leave
rumors in
this
my
on
mind,
for y'all.
my head bouncing off an errant branch, punishment for not looking where I was going. Pride wounded, but relatively unscathed, she helped me to my feet as we crossed the clearing.
I've got to go smoke, and then I gotta figure out my SSD situation so that I can put all my games on it
simple dirt
without it
occupying the
shitting
space
out and
save for the
freaking out
gargantuan
on
oak
me.
tree in the far corner. Thick roots jutting out from
I
the
almost
base
had
and
all of
trailing over a
Helldivers
small
on
patch of
there,
land in front of
and
it,
then it shat
like
out
it was
on me.
claiming territory.
So I'm thinking I can't
Anyone out
really
here since
transfer
Angela was
anything
spotted?
bigger than like
I called as I inspected
70,
the
80
surrounding
gigs
area.
without it.
The experienced boys
on
said
me.
it was barren territory, and they'd think of
So
something.
I'm just gonna have to keep working
But they
on
didn't
this.
say shit,
I might
and
end
so
up
it was
having
left to me to
to
clean the mess up.
send it back.
I can't look another goddamn family in the eyes and tell them I lost another
Honestly,
one.
Martha's voice quivered.
just
This
get a
was personal.
fucking new one.
That
You
thought
know,
rose back
like,
up once
that's what
more,
I'm thinking.
but I tried to move past it. We'll find her, don't worry. You called me here for a reason, right? You can stay if you really want to. I teased, hoping to lighten the mood a tad, but walking back over to her, I was surprised by how terrified she seemed.
You know what? I don't want to go any further anyway.
Martha breathed with her fist balled.
Being here just gives me the willies. Do what you gotta do, and I'll circle back before sundown. If you have any issues, use this.
She hands me a flare gun and stares me dead in the face.
Usually for bears, but Well, we don't know what's around here.
Eve Online.
I don't like Eve. Go
Good
away.
luck, Wilson.
With that, she left the way she came, and I stood there, processing the information I had and dreading what I had to do next. Inspect the base of the roots. It looked as if, while the clearing had some activity and old footprints belonging to various campers, the 10-foot radius surrounding the tree was untouched, eerily so. Venturing closer, I began to notice the branches swaying almost rhythmically, and my eyes almost felt bewitched by them. Before I knew it, I'd stumbled over an errant branch and fell face first in the dirt, just a foot away from an opening at the base of the tree. I could see down into the darkness and felt my blood run cold as something began calling out from the depths. It was a crying baby. Eyes flicker for a moment, and a sharp pang of fear rushes through me as I instinctively reach through the gap and try to grab at the baby I cannot see. Instead, I feel my arm being clawed at by something, as a cackling rips through my ears and the sensation of being violently pulled gives way to total darkness. I don't know how long I was out for, but when I came to, eyes dazed and head throbbing, I caught the distinct scent of iron, petrichor, and sulfur. A sobbing accompanied the wailing of a child, and I craned my damaged
Obviously
neck
that's
ever
not
so
working.
slightly
I'm
to
gonna have
locate
to
the source.
restart, which means
It
I'll
was
have to
Angela,
restart
covered
this
in
turn.
blood and
I'll be
filthier than
back,
she'd
chat.
been just a day and a half
Just
prior,
give me a
holding her
moment
baby.
and I